This is the E-commerce Brain Trust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our brain trust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome to the E-commerce Brain Trust podcast. I'm your host, Julie Spear, alongside my co-host, Jordan Ripley, and we've got ourselves another edition of the Retail Roundup, where we recap all the key industry news from the past month. We've got our trusty Armin.com back to go deep on all things ops and organic relative to Amazon and retail marketplaces. And mixing it up, Ross is giving his voice a rest this week. In his place, we have our friend Pat Patriello to share his takes on developments from the media side of things. With that, Armin, Pat, welcome. Are you ready to dive in and talk about the past month in the world of Amazon and retail media and marketplaces?
Absolutely. It's that super quiet time of year. Nothing really going on. So, wait a minute. What's that? Oh, sorry. By the time I'm done with this sentence, we'll have 2 new updates for the pods.
Always.
Yeah, and I might take us back to a few years at least, not really just this month. So.
Okay.
Armin, you always give us great historical context for what the updates mean. It's not just in the moment, it's in the greater scheme of things. So with that, we're at the most lovely time of year when news of FBA fee changes have rolled out. So, Armin, I'm curious. You have dug into FBA fee changes over the years, and last year was probably one of the more epic updates for fees for 3P sellers. And you did a great job of walking us through with a playbook on how brands can look at it. This year's updates have come out, and we put together a handy guide for brands to consider what these changes mean. So we'll link that guide, the blog post, in our show notes so our listeners can give it a look. But for the conversation today, I'd love to understand from your view, Armin, how these fee changes compare to years past. Give us a little walk through history and what stood out to you as something that brands should really, really be focused on this year.
Yeah. Looking at the major events that led to fee changes this year, I take us back to 2022 when Amazon started shifting from this national to regional fulfillment model. I can take us back to 1994, but we might have some issues doing anything else today.
Yeah. Tell us about books, Armin.
Yeah, I should have brewed some tea if we're going to go that far.
Yeah, there was this guy that said, I want to sell books online, and then it goes on. So in 2023, this regional model is fully unleashed. So 2022 was just the start of it. And throughout 2023, Amazon is learning from it. And then 2024 happens when we had this huge year in terms of all the changes they introduced. So we got inbound placement fees, a lot of new size tiers, low-level inventory fee, shipment splits, return processing fee, many other small changes. And this was the year when they started monetizing on the regional model, kind of doubling down on its efficiencies while also increasing costs where there were inefficiencies. This was also the year Amazon started defining the operational behavior they expect from sellers. It was, if you do well, you get better margins. If you perform poorly, you will be punished kind of thing. And this year also Amazon pushed more sellers to test Amazon Global Logistics as well as their Amazon warehousing distribution solutions. The incentives to use these were pretty significant. And I remember Amazon quoting savings of some features up to 80% or so. And then the start of 2025 was surprisingly uneventful. Amazon only introduced slight changes to a few fees, mainly beneficial to the sellers. But I assume this was just throwing sand in their eyes so they wouldn't look at the Q4 storage fees that were happening just a few months ago. So the story is, Amazon keeps learning and maturing with their new setup 24 and 2025. And we come to today when the changes announced feel like the icing on the cake, or to some, it's the last drop that spills the glass. But this year is really about refining. Amazon presents this as a moderate 8 cents increase on average, but instead of seeing increases across the board, the changes are actually targeting certain product sizes, certain fulfillment speeds, storage duration, stuff like that. It's really the wrap up of perform well and be rewarded, causes issues, and you'll pay. A few things that kind of stood out to me the most are if you're in a standard size product size tier and you're priced above $50, for example, you'll be getting hit with a huge increase in fees, which is like 51 cents per unit. So way more than the 8 cents that the average that kind of got announced. Also, for sellers who have been sending everything to a single location, for example, those are the sellers that have been eating the inbound placement fees. There will be significant changes if they are continue doing this way for standard size tiers and products heavier than 5 pounds. I feel like this will actually push these folks to either do split options or go the optimal split with Amazon to get their lower fees. And then the last point I want to make, Amazon had all of these incentives to do buy with Prime. Let's do multi-channel fulfillment and all of these things. Now all of these things are getting more expensive. Initially, it was kind of like, come here, test with us, learn with us, and use these at a discount. And now they're actually upping the prices for buy with Prime. Multi-channel fulfillment has higher fees unless you have 3 units or more in your order, which also ties to Amazon actually wanting that basket building to happen even more. If you do multi-channel fulfillment, if you do buy with Prime, and if you ship more items at once, we love you, we'll give you a discount. Also, the IEWD, specifically for the West Coast, the fees are going up there too. And this is one of the programs that I quoted in early on that had like this 80% savings promise just 2 years ago. Yeah, overall, I feel good about these changes. We have well-optimized processes. So I'm not expecting any of these punishing moves to affect us and the brands we manage. However, for some of those brands that have not matured over the last few years and still have a lot of operational inefficiencies, I think this might be their last warning.
Let's bust out the trusty hypometer. I mean, if we look at it in terms of like level of impact and how much brands should be paying attention to it, I would say last year's updates seemed huge in comparison. And last year would definitely have been a 10 because they were much more far reaching. And this, like you've said, is like a refinement. How would you measure this year?
Yeah, I would give it a 9 still, just because like it compares to like a lot of like huge changes back in 2024. So yeah, a 9.
It's a continuation of like, is it part of a trilogy? Is this
it's kind of like a crown, like this is the crown that sits on well-oiled machines that operate well on the logistics side. So you got to up it up.
Yeah, I think the piece that Armin, you and Tamara worked on, I did a great job of highlighting that, like, on average, yes, this might not seem massive, but the difference is in the variance between here. And your point of monetization, where it's like, we had a decade plus of FBA be kind of dead simple, like just send in products, Amazon will do the rest for you. And then we had like this huge introduction of complexity of various different programs. And it was like, okay, now sellers can start separating themselves based on their capabilities and the fees they pay. And now we enter this third phase of monetization where it's like, you have the complexity and we're going to make it razor thin on the margins, which Amazon just laid off 10% of their corporate workforce yesterday or announced that they would be. So clearly there's a profitability mindset in here. I feel like we're seeing this across all areas of their business right now.
Survival of the fittest, always.
Yeah. Which, I mean, the
100%. And like on a macro level, and it's interesting how this will tie into some of the media questions that we'll get to, is it just reinforces what we've been saying for a long time, which you essentially need to treat your SKUs like a P&L for each SKU. Mm-hmm. And on the media side, we talk to folks about profitability, ACoS, ROAS. And then when we actually turn around and go, what are your COGS? What does it cost you to ship 1? What does it cost you to ship 2? How big is the box? Then sometimes it's, we have to check with that team. And like you said, like Amazon's maturing, the ecosystem is maturing. Survival of the fittest is the best way to put it. Many will, I think, bristle at these things because it's easy just to complain because Amazon's big bad Amazon. But there are others who will get past that pretty quickly and say, how can we use this as an advantage? Not that you guys asked me, but I thought it was curious.
Yeah. No, inject some Darwinian themes here. Well, you touched on the sort of media strategizing, and there were 2 big announcements that came out in the last month. One within the sort of O&O Twitch platform for Amazon, where they announced you will now be able to buy shoppable ads directly within Twitch. The other more on the partnership side of the business, where this was, I think, it rumored for quite some time, but made it official that they were partnering with Spotify for a lot of audio ad placements. two big old names in the industry, Twitch and Spotify. Pat, how do you see this changing kind of our near, mid, and long-term media buying and what might be in store here?
Yes, you're right to draw the distinction between them, with Twitch being O&O and Spotify being an extension of open internet. And so what I want to zoom out and from a theme standpoint, because these are data points that fit under the larger umbrella, the expansion of Amazon's DSP to be a real true force in the programmatic media buying space. I think even some of these news, you can directly watch the Trade Desk stock go down as Amazon has these integration announcements. So let's talk about the Spotify one. And that one I'll connect to what's been going on recently with Amazon platform and property relationships and integrations, like we saw with Roku, what we saw with Netflix, what we saw with Disney. And so this is all about reach, is being able to buy ads on Amazon's DSP as one programmatic media buying platform, and to be able to reach folks who are streaming, who are listening, who are podcasting, all over the web, essentially. And so what's interesting about that one is there's another part of Amazon, that's Amazon Music, that's a direct competitor to Spotify. So Amazon has actually become so big that one of their business units, Amazon Ads, is partnering with Spotify, who is then a direct competitor with Amazon Music. On the other side, Twitch, the popularity, I think this is more global than it has been in the States, at least, the popularity of live stream commerce, which Amazon has forever tried to tap into. Amazon Live, which does not have the best reputation. I know if you're a true proper influencer, we've seen some units move there and we've seen some traction, but it hasn't been something that's really become meat and potatoes for a lot of Amazon advertisers on Amazon. And so what this is, basically this is copying TikTok, essentially. Amazon enabling shoppable content on Twitch. I think Amazon's testing this as well as advertisers. Like, this will either be a thing that half of advertisers are doing in 2 years, or we'll say, remember when that existed and then it is gone. But I think the overall takeaway here, if I'm a brand and trying to distill what do all these announcements mean, is that Amazon's DSP is giving more access to hire more engaged audience across premium content and properties than ever before. I don't think these are the last two announcements. I think we could do this podcast every Tuesday and probably have one or two more of these announcements. I'd continue to see that. And for brands, I'd look at, how are you buying programmatic media right now? Is it through DV360? Is it through Trade Desk? Is it through MIQ? Is it through another provider? Is it through Amazon DSP? And really take stock of who you're reaching and how you're reaching them.
Yeah, the Spotify thing's interesting to me because I think we all view this through the audio lens because that's where we know Spotify. But I also feel like the line between video and audio in those is blurring, right? There's a lot of video content on Spotify. We thought of YouTube as like mostly video, but they're getting into music, right? So to me, this is for sure there's an audio play here, but we know that video eyeballs are key prime real estate for Amazon. So this makes sense as a future investment of what Spotify could become.
And Spotify isn't sitting still either. This just for the first time last week, I noticed I had a message on Spotify, which I sound old. I didn't even know that was possible. I had one of my buddies who we share music to each other. You can now chat on a specific track that you've shared. Spotify is now getting into the messaging game. I'm reading That's Julie's great. Eyebrows to be like,
this is breaking news.
I'd love one more Inbox Zero platform to manage. I can't wait for this.
I'm just waiting for the messages from my daughter about which Taylor Swift track I need to be listening to next.
I hooked you on Spotify. You never responded.
You left me on red.
Oh, man. This was news. Thank you for educating me on that, Pat.
Yeah.
Kind of switching gears a little bit, just so it's not a roundtable without AI. I feel like we would not be doing our job unless we talked about an AI update. Recently, we saw that Amazon rolled out an AI assistant Amazon storefront page builder. Armin, what is this? What's the functionality appear to be? What's your point of view on the actual value that it could offer? What are we looking at? And also, extra points, if you share a prediction of what is the next AI update that Amazon is going to roll out relative to the organic side of things?
Good question. Yeah, this is something we spotted in the wild and seems to be just the extension of the recently announced agentic seller assistant. And then also the need to enable brands to quickly create team store pages around upcoming tentpole events. So currently there are like three main options you can choose from. Create a new version from your live store. You can create a new version from scratch, and then create a version from a store in another country. So the process basically mimics how you chat with any AI, give it instructions and what you want to see. And then in Amazon style, of course, it pre-populates recommendations for you. The creativity of Amazon, right? Right now, you'll see template instructions around Black Friday, Cyber Monday store setup. So I assume as seasons change, this will change too. So you'll have a Valentine's template that Amazon offers and stuff like that. Honestly, not impressed by the tool so far. It's a great idea, but feels it needs more training. And just the level we're at as an agency when building storefronts just goes beyond the basics this feature offers. What I do is that you can use this to set up a skeleton of your store in order to just start visualizing the layout, maybe use AI to make some headlines and call outs to just get inspiration. And then also if you're a brand that's just starting, or maybe you don't have a storefront at all or people to manage it, having an AI version built and updated is better than not building anything at all. And then to your question, Julie, of what's next, I don't know, maybe A plus page builder. If it's storefront, maybe it starts touching the A plus.
That seems like the next logical test. So we'll see. We'll see if that's on the November roundup.
Maybe we don't have an AI update on the next part.
I don't think
or we've been replaced and we won't have anything to update about. No, I think we saw things that seemed minor but seemed to indicate a trend, which is recently you could ingest a product feed in the format that your product feed has versus having to match it to like the bulk upload template columns. And there's all these minor steps that Amazon has taken to reduce the bar of merchandising, assortment expansion, that sort of thing. And so I feel like this storefront is one more. I feel like there's a world where you just take a direct site and say, here's my direct site, mimic this in store, and AI magic happens and you get that as an immediate template. I feel like there's the replication of channels onto Amazon so that they can capture more of those brands that maybe have invested more in direct, but now can come on Amazon. That doesn't seem like a crazy expansion from where we're at. That's why I
said it's a great idea if they could make that happen.
If it works.
Or just give me a template.
Yeah. There's a seminal moment I'm waiting for here, which is that Amazon to this moment has kept their search bar and Rufus as two separate points. Whereas, right, like you go to Google, you do a Google search, you get the Gemini answer, and then you get the Google search results. Right now, Amazon search bar is still Amazon search bar. Rufus is still Rufus. At some moment, Rufus will go into Amazon search bar, I believe. That will be a big day. Curious when that's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And if I'm wrong, this conversation never happens.
Let's pull apart some of that sort of AI convergence theme, because there were a couple of big announcements around that too in the last month, speaking specifically of a sequence of 3 events that I'd like to run by you, Pat. The first is Ben Parks, one of the folks at SimilarWeb, made an announcement a few weeks ago that Amazon is seeing less overall traffic from ChatGPT over the last 3 months. Same time, shortly thereafter, we had this announce of ChatGPT's like agentic commerce protocol, where they can say, I can hook into commerce platforms, I can surface results directly in ChatGPT, people can buy without ever leaving ChatGPT. So that was one big announcement. And then that came with Shopify and Etsy as direct integrations. Soon thereafter, we found out Walmart was also on board with this protocol. Salesforce, I also believe, is building it into their order management and e-com platform. So a lot of big names here. If we compare this to the Amazon retail media offering, where it was like iHerb and Oriental Trading and stuff versus like these partnerships, like seems like a fairly big go-to-market shift here. So Pat, curious to get your thoughts on what this means for Walmart, for Amazon, for e-com generally, for all of our lives. The floor is here.
So just a casual question and an update of the status of the current moment and the future of agentic AI shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this. And I think we'll probably could have a whole podcast episode or Steven series talking about this. A couple things I want to pick apart to take your prompt point by point. There clearly is a bifurcation happening right now in that there are retailers, and I think Walmart, Instacart, and I won't call Shopify a retailer, obviously, but an e-commerce platform, that have made a strategic decision to play with ChatGPT. As you mentioned, you can do product searches within ChatGPT. You can surface products. I did it yesterday to test this out a little bit. I have an 11-month-old, and it occurred to me yesterday I don't have shoes for him. I keep walking him around barefoot, and I was like, all right, so I need...
Very San Diego of you.
Very San Diego to me. And as a person who's never bought shoes for a baby, I thought that was actually a really good use case for ChatGPT because I know how to buy shoes for myself. I don't need to be like, what? Do I need laces? Do I know that? But for that particular product search, I needed education as much as I needed choices. And so I tested that in ChatGPT. So this bifurcation is happening. And the clear differentiator is Amazon, at least at this moment, is choosing not to participate in that way. Meaning Amazon is just staying within their walled garden. You want to come to Amazon, use Rufus, Surface products that way. There's a couple things here. One of the things I push back on and I challenge is I think there's some lazy hot takery happening in our space, which is the narrative that Amazon is behind because some players have made a choice to do a thing that Amazon has not made a choice to do. To me, the way I'm looking at this is, we don't know yet how this is going to play out. And I think that's an acknowledgement. It's early doors here. And I think it's safer to say everyone should do a thing because some people are doing a thing. Where I think we need to step back and be like, we don't know how this plays out. And this could be a decision that makes sense for Instacart, that makes sense for Walmart. I think for Amazon, at least the tea leaves I'm reading here, is the most important thing that they have is the merchant of record data. So one of the choices that Walmart and Instacart and those platforms have made is they're sharing that merchant of record information with a transaction with another party now, which is OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. That is gold. Now another organization, another company has that information to monetize and to be able to use to change their experience. And so at least this moment, Amazon has made the decision not to do that. One, I think the assumptions, because humans, we're really bad at predicting the future because it's hard and because we barely understand our behaviors in the present. And so we look at today and we go, ChatGPT, that's where everyone will do everything. Where there's just as likely a future where we have 50 different AI companions, one that we use for daycare tracking, one that we use for commerce, one that we use for beauty, right? And so we don't know how this is going to shake out. Here, I'm reading here what else you mentioned. A couple of other things, and where there's inconclusive data, is I have read data and research with equal conviction that has said ChatGPT search results convert at the highest rate of the internet ever. And then I have read probably more data that suggests ChatGPT, at least their recommendations, product recommendations right now, convert quite poorly. From what I've seen, there's more data that suggests that the search results do not convert well. But the other mistake I think people are making is then saying, this doesn't work. I read a quote that I thought was really interesting is, this is the worst ChatGPT will ever be, is today. Yes, it's not great today, but it's a baby and it will continue to get better over time. Look, where does this leave us? What does this all mean? My personal feeling is where it goes both ways. I think there's a little bit of overhype right now because I think a mistake a lot of people in our space make, and we're in our bubbles a little bit, right? I'm on LinkedIn and I'm realizing I'm reading content from other people who are creating content and who are very close to it, as opposed to people who are actually consumers. So I think one of the things that people are mistaking is if you build something, people will use it. And what history has shown us is people will use something if it makes their lives easier or better or more helpful. I think search is not dead. I think in 2 years, 90+% of product discovery still going to happen through the search bar. I honestly believe that's not the prevailing narrative right now. I believe that ChatGPT, and we're just using that as a kind of placeholder for there's Perplexity, there's a whole bunch of other ones. But from a volume standpoint, ChatGPT is the highest percentage. For these product discovery type things, and I think even using how do I buy a baby shoes is a good example, or we're coming up on the holidays. Gift buying is really difficult. You don't know exactly what you need or what you want. You know, I have a 10-year-old nephew who likes action figures and baseball. Help me come up with gift ideas. I think that's a really powerful use case. But I have a hard time believing, at least in this moment, that ChatGPT is really optimized and ideal for product awareness, discovery, and conversion, all within essentially a conversational kind of chat box window. To the extent I've answered your question, I'm not sure. But I think this is going to, there's no question that AI commerce and agentic commerce will emerge as another modality. I think the human brain makes a mistake that new things mean the old things don't apply anymore, when I really think this is just going to be another thing. People still send paper mail, which is crazy, but email didn't totally eliminate the need for the post office showing up to the house every day. And so I think this will be another modality. Where it fits in and how it fits in is going to be really interesting and something that's going to impact our whole ecosystem. And I think the mistakes are being made on both sides. I think people who are saying this will change everything forever and search will go away, I think those people are wrong. I think people who are saying, this isn't even something I have to pay attention to, this will have no impact on the retail media ecosystem, are equally wrong and more dangerously wrong because they're taking an ostrich approach. So yeah, there's a lot more to come on this.
But mostly we're all wrong. That's
And I was just going to use Pat's new term of hot takery. So your hot takery on this is too soon to know, but pay attention and develop some understanding of what's.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's hard because we're human to resist the emotional headline hot takery. There is a little bit of wait and see here.
Okay.
I do have an idea for the podcast name. We're all wrong.
There is a podcast you're wrong about, so we might get some IP infringement.
The e-commerce brain trust. You're all wrong.
But Armin, it's so liberating and freeing, and I think I would hope our audience would appreciate that we have the level of humility to know this stuff is happening in real time. We're going to get a lot of it right, but there's a lot people don't know. There's plenty of other sources to go for people who will bang their hands on the desk and tell you they're right.
We'll move from a rather complex question to a bit more straightforward for our final topic for today. Let's go back to fees because we just can't talk about fees enough. Recently, Amazon updated their Prime exclusive deal fees for the holidays. And then in the same vein around pricing, the $, Amazon also appears to be testing out showing the historical price for a given product, at least on the mobile app. Armin, can you share your take on these two updates that we've seen in the past month?
Yeah, there's always a fee and there's always AI. So the change for the Prime exclusive discounts for a fee for the Black Friday Cyber Monday period, it was actually part of the Amazon's whole get ready for the holiday shopping season announcement from 2 months ago, I believe. But given how popular this promo type is, no surprises at all that the fee is higher this round. What stands out to me is that the fee is actually the same whether you select full 12-day event or just go Black Friday or just go Cyber Monday period, like you pay the same. So what I feel like an opportunity here might be like for brands that see major spike, maybe just on Cyber Monday period, it may make more sense not to discount the full 12 days and try to capitalize on better margins for a larger part of the event. But I guess even a more important topic here is whether brands can even support a minimum of 20% off to qualify for the deal. So if the margins are there, I'd say the fee itself is really not too high, especially if you combine multiple products under a single PED. I believe like up to 500 products can fit under a single PED. So the fee is really minimal. For the price history tracker, this one's very interesting, actually. When I was reading like comments from folks, like one of them says we needed this like 10, 15 years ago. It addresses like two main concerns I think shoppers have. So one is, am I actually getting a deal or not? Can I trust this discount? And two, now I don't have to go and cross-check pricing history on other third-party apps. So there's less friction in the purchase journey itself. For brands, though, I think this might force them to actually be more strategic and transparent with their discounting and pricing in general, including the notorious list prices that have been used for years to show inflated prices that the product was never sold at. I'm also eager to see how this will affect Amazon's algorithm, because that same list price tactic has been something I've seen so many times on items shipped and sold by Amazon. So are they going to adjust how they show these things, and will we finally see just end of pricing manipulation?
That's a great question to end on, because come back here next month to see if that's part of the update. Armin, Pat, thank you for your insights and your hot takery and pointing out that ultimately we're all wrong. It was a great conversation and look forward to digging in on next month's Retail Roundup.